Sorry about that. You didn't get to peep my socks though. They're my favorite. My senior year of dance, one of my friends got them for me because we did Swan Lake, and it's like a tradition that the seniors get the main roles, and the way that we do Swan Lake is, I don't know if you guys have seen the ballet of Swan Lake, but usually the same dancer plays Black Swan and White Swan. Yeah, but the way that we do it, like, especially if there's more than one senior plays the Black Swan, one senior plays the White Swan, so I was the Black Swan. So they didn't have Black Swan socks, but one of my friends from dance got me swan socks because she was like, "You're a swan," so I was like, love that for me. But the reason I was actually coming in here to talk to you guys is that I finally started a book. I finally decided what I was going to read next. And surprise, surprise, it's not any of the ones that I actually need to read. So I started reading George by Alex Gino, which, if you didn't know, is about a trans girl, and technically her name is Melissa. This is her birth name. I believe the author talks about it in sort of an interview in the back about why they named the book this, and like the reasons that it's not a good idea to actually call your book the name of your trans character, like the dead name of your trans character, because dead names are generally not a great thing to talk about. I'm not going to go super into depth in that right now. But basically, the main character, Melissa, she is a trans girl, but she hasn't really told anyone. So I'm literally on page 56. And like, I'm reading really quickly because it's middle grade, so I think I'm going to finish it. I'm definitely going to finish it today. But it's so hard to read because I keep seeing people being like, "Oh my god, you're such a strong young man." And it's like, no, she's not. I just want to jump in the book and punch them in the face. But I also don't, because it's like, they're good people with good intentions towards her. They just don't know that they're doing something bad for her mental health. But it hurts. It hurts me so bad. There was this one part where she was trying to tell her mom, and her mom was like, "Sweetie, I love you no matter what." And she was like, and then her mom was like, "You'll always be my little boy." And I was like, no! You were doing so well. And then it's a great book so far. It's excellent. I highly recommend it. Beyond the fact that the book is called the main character's dead name, I think that it's doing really great things in general. Like, okay, so the main character's dead name is also in the book, like, because obviously she's not out as trans, so she's referred to as her dead name most of the time by other people. Just like, oh my god. I don't even know how to express how I feel about this book. It makes me want to cry, and it's funny because the main character is 10, which is like, I can't believe she knew she was trans at that age. Genuinely, I can't imagine it, because like, I didn't have any idea about being trans when I was that age, like, at all. So the idea that she knows what being trans is, and she figured out that she is trans, and now her only thing is that she has to explain that to her mom and, like, you know, the world. Like, okay, that's a hard thing, yeah, I know, but like, I'm so happy that she like knows who she is, and although she isn't brave enough yet, I have a feeling that throughout the book we'll see her become brave enough to sort of explain that to people and help them understand like what she wants to do with her life and all that stuff. And I just like, I want to cry and hug her for eternity. So yeah. That's how this book is going. I thought I should update you guys on starting a book, because I think I talked a lot earlier about how like starting a book was a struggle because I couldn't decide what to read. And I still feel bad because like, obviously my hair, oh my god. Because obviously I have other things that I need to be reading. Why does my hair, what is this? What is, look at this. There we go. Perfect. I feel bad that I'm not reading the other books that I said that I needed to read, because obviously like I need to read them. And I think that out of the books that I kind of had on sort of a TBR, I don't think this was on that I put earlier in the video. I don't remember. Like, in case you can't tell, I'm a major mood reader. Okay, TBRs don't do that badly for me because like I can still sort of get myself to read based on a TBR. But I can't like structure my reading. Like, I can't say, okay, the next book I'm going to read is this, the next book I'm going to read is this, the next book I'm going to read is this. I sort of have to go into a given period of time just hoping that I get in the mood for the books that I need to read during that period of time. After this book, I'm probably going to be in the mood to read other books with trans characters or LGBTQ plus characters. I have a couple of other queer middle grade books that I honestly might pick up. For one, because I want to get my Goodreads goal back up and for another because I love reading queer middle grade. I think it's really, really adorable because a lot of times, I mean, I feel like I literally just talked about this earlier today, but a lot of times in queer middle grade, there's not as much focus on hate and like queer phobia, especially like homophobia and transphobia, because it's like, it's directed towards kids. I literally feel like I had this conversation with myself earlier this morning. But that's one of the things I love about queer middle grade is like, it's mostly about the main characters sort of figuring out their identity. And like, sure, sometimes they encounter some form of homophobia or transphobia, but it's never in like the same way as young adult because this is directed towards children. And I think, like I said before, you want to leave the book with a positive outlook on life, especially if you're a queer youth and you're like trying to figure that out for yourself. And I've now been talking for 7 minutes about this damn book, but it's so good. Like, I need to get Alex Gino's other book immediately. I think it's called Rick. Rick? Is Rick the... If you have read George and Rick, is Rick the character that's in this and like these characters are aged up? Because if I get to see Melissa in 7th grade, like, living her best life, I'm gonna cry. I swear I'm gonna cry reading that book. I am going to stop this update now because it's past 7.5 minutes and I need to stop. But yeah, I started a new book, so. You guys probably can't see me all the way back here, but reading time-lapse time, so y'all can see me freaking out, like, physically about the book, because I do freak out physically. Time-lapse. One of the things that I think is really interesting is that I think that for a lot of people, when getting used to someone's new pronouns, it can feel weird to hear their new pronouns out loud. Like, I know that that's how it felt for me, and I know that's how it is when someone tells me what their pronouns are, and either I assumed they were something else or they changed their pronouns. And one of the things I'm really appreciating about this book is the fact that hearing her family, Melissa's family, call her he just sounds really weird in my head. I'm like, what do you mean? They can't be talking about Melissa because that's not. And so it's really interesting to see from that perspective because normally with books with trans characters, especially when they're closeted, you don't hear their preferred pronoun. You usually hear their pronoun that like associates with their gender assigned at birth. I think it was really interesting for me reading to be not confused, but like sort of weirded out when I saw her family call her a guy, I guess. I don't know. I think that's really interesting when books do that. Or I guess just when books make you think like that. And we're back with the existential feeling of what am I gonna read next? I finished George by Alex Gino. It's so fucking adorable. It's just so cute. I know that most of the time when we read books about trans people, like, they know their identity, and there's very few books out there, I think, with trans people who don't, like, already know their identity when you start the book. And I think that that's a universal experience with a lot of trans people because it feels like there was always something wrong or something, like, not quite right. I know those sound like the same thing, but they're not. To me anyway. And like, it just depends on what age in your life that you discover what that thing is and how that affects you, I guess. And I've read, well, I don't want to say a lot because I haven't, but I've read, for some reason off the top of my head, I can think of 3. I know that there are more. Can we consider The Death of Vivek Oji a story about a trans person? I think we can. Yes, we can. So yeah, like, I've read like 3 or 4. I don't want to have to go back and count because I'm sure there's plenty of books that have like trans side characters, but I'm thinking specifically about trans main characters or like one of the main characters is trans. But a lot of the books that I've read are from the perspective of a much older person since I usually read YA and adult. So reading a middle grade where the trans character, the main character, Melissa, knows that she's trans, or well, she knows that she's a girl. She doesn't call herself trans in this book, although like I feel like that's a label that works. And like other people call her trans and she's fine with it, but like she knows, and she's known not for her whole life but for a lot of it. And she's only like 9 or 10 in this book, and the fact that this story even exists is just beautiful and perfect. And I still haven't read the acknowledgements or because I think there's an author's note or an interview with the author in the back of this one. Yeah, some FAQs and stuff, and I really want to read through that to see what they say about how they developed the story. And like, this book was published in 2015, I think, so it's been a while since the book was published. I don't know when the FAQs are from, but you know, that's a thing. I haven't rated it on Goodreads yet, but this book is 5 stars. 5 fucking stars. It was beautiful. If you are a person, which you are, read it. I swear, it took me like 2 hours. It's fucking adorable. I know I keep saying fuck, but I can't help it because I just don't know how else to express my emotions with this book. And it makes me want to cry that the people around Melissa didn't accept her. It makes me want to cry the struggles that Melissa had to go through in this book, because I just felt so bad for her. Like, she's just trying to live her life. Why are you all being so mean? Sorry. No books were damaged in the making of this video. So yeah, finished. I might continue on my middle grade kick. The other 2 middle grades that I have, I'm not going to pull them both out because one of them's behind the camera. But the other 2 middle grades that I have are Ivy Aberdeen's Letter to the World and King of the Dragonflies by Casey Callender. Oh, this one's by Ashley Herring Blake. I think King of the Dragonflies is about a gay boy, like figuring out he's gay, and Ivy Aberdeen is about a gay girl. It's just all gay. And I'm just really curious about both of them. And like I said, I'm kind of in middle grade feels right now, but that's probably going to change in the next 5 minutes. And I need to start working on making dinner. So there's like a lot of stuff going on there. I'm really happy that this book entered my life. I need to read Rick, which is the other book by this author, immediately, and I think features a character that was in this book, so I'm really curious to read a book from that character's perspective, because that character isn't super involved in this book. He kind of is, but not really, and like I'm really curious to see where his story goes, I guess. Especially because I'm pretty sure he's ace, so like that's even cooler, because like what do I love more than reading about LGBTQ plus people? Reading about ace people, because like they're never anywhere in fiction, and non-binary people, because they're also not anywhere in fiction, but like, you know. So I just finished filming my September TBR. I'm balancing on my feet, so I'm sorry if I keep like falling over and wobbling and stuff. By the time this reading vlog goes up, I should have finished this book, and that's in 5 days. So I kind of need to like kick my ass into gear and just do it. But I also been really, really intrigued by this book, and I just want to read more cute books about LGBTQ plus people, like just living their lives, I guess. So yeah. Also in that video, I feel like the lighting changed 1,000,001 times, so I'm really sorry if it looks like that. Once again, I can't control the weather, no matter how much anxiety that might cause me. So yeah, my legs are now killing me. So yeah, that's all you get for this update. Also, I realized I really want to show you guys my bullet journal. I got a book bullet journal that I started at the beginning of August, just because I had been putting all of my book spreads in my regular bullet journal, but it didn't feel like a good idea because it felt convoluted. I felt like I was using that journal for too many things. So now I have a bullet journal that's entirely dedicated to like life stuff, like classes, general tasks, and then this bullet journal is dedicated to books and that stuff. Literally only books. I have everything else in the other journal, which still feels a little convoluted, but it's fine. So I figured I could show you what I did with it, because I'm pretty proud of how it turned out. So this is my title page. These are like my, sort of like, just so I remember, you know, dates and stuff. I always try to put that in the beginning of my journal. This is my tracking how many books I've read in 2020. I'm really hoping I can get to 150. Where's 150? Right here. But like, I'm pretty behind. I think Goodreads says I'm like 3 books behind schedule, so we'll see how that goes. These are like my overview statistics pages. I have statistics pages for each month, but I also just like to make an overview, especially because I didn't do spreads for the first half of the year. So yeah, I just sort of track how many books I read, how many books I buy,
how many pages that I read, and then the best book of that month. And then after that, I also make spreads for the best book of that month. And like I put my favorite quote, and like the number of stars, and then I write out the title in the font of the book. I don't really like this page, so just look at this one, because I think this one turned out a lot better. It's really cute. I love the little heart stickers. I think they make it really pretty, and like I really like how I wrote January. I think that turned out really good. And then we have March, which is like obviously. I haven't done April yet, or May, because I don't really know what I'm doing. But I did do June. I don't know how I feel about the washi tape, but I wasn't sure how else to do it, so it's just sort of what ended up happening, I guess. And then I haven't finished my July one yet, but that was Gideon the 9th. And then these are my August spreads. So I have a title page here. I have my pages read tracker, which I need to fill out my pages read from yesterday. I have my TBR where I cross off the books that I read, and 3 of them now I'm not reading, so I really only have 1, but it looks like I have a lot more to read than I do. And then I track the books that I read in the order that I finish them. I track the books that I buy, which like surprisingly was only 3. And then this is my most anticipated releases for the month. And then this is where I'm going to put like my statistics. Sorry if you can hear that. I'm kind of by a garage service station, so it's pretty loud in here sometimes. Anyway, monthly statistics. And then this is going to be my favorite of the month thing for August, which I still haven't decided what book that is yet, but I will have to soon because it's almost the end of August. And then here's the beginning of my September spreads. I don't like them as much as August, but I do think they turned out pretty good. I had this sticker pack that I wanted to use, so I just sort of used the stickers and some washi tapes. So I have my pages read tracker. I have my TBR, which I left 1 box for because I think that I'm going to participate in the Indie Book Club or one of the other book clubs that I mentioned in the video I just filmed and that went up a couple of days ago. So I left that blank, and then I had to leave the 2 blank of the book clubs that like we haven't chosen what book we're reading yet. But that's my long TBR. This is my books read page. Here's where I write the books I bought. Here's my anticipated releases. This time I broke it up into the days that they're coming out, because I feel like I have a lot more for this month, especially for the first, so I just wanted to split them up like that. And then here's where my monthly stats will go. And then here's where the September favorite will go. So yeah, that's my bullet journal. I don't know why I felt the need to do that, but there you go. I tried to start, it's all the way over there. You know, I'm gonna get it. Usually I would be a lot more lazy than that. Y'all have corrupted me. I tried to start Girl Serpent Thorn by Melissa Bashardoust. This is gonna sound weird, but it wasn't the writing style that I wanted. It sounded weird in my head, still sounds weird saying it out loud. But I really wanted something that was more, oh my god, my freaking hair. Personable. Especially in fantasy, there's a lot of like fancy metaphors and like flowy prose and all of that stuff, and like that has its time and place, and I certainly do enjoy books like that. But right now I'm really in the mood for books that have a more, like I said, personal style, so when they really try to relate to the reader and like things aren't mentioned in 5 different sorts of metaphors and stuff like that. So I ended up picking up Camp by Elsie Rosen, and I am really enjoying it. I feel like I haven't been reading enough lately to actually like say that I'm forcing myself to read this book, because like I am forcing myself to read this book, but the reason I'm having to force myself is because I haven't been consistently reading for the past couple of days, and every time I try to sit down and read, my brain goes, oh no, you should go do this, oh no, you have to go do that. And it's like, really, I don't have to do any of those things right now. Some of the things I don't even have to do, they're just things that like are on my mind. And when I sit down and read for a little bit, I sort of calm down a little, I guess. But it does take me a second to get myself into that mode, and I just have to force myself through it. And the thing is that when I'm in that mood, it's a lot easier to force myself through it if it's a book like this that has, I guess, less lyrical writing and more like funny, upbeat moments, rather than this book where I'm trying to learn a new magical world, and the author has beautiful writing. I'm not going to say that that's not true, but it's just not what I need right now when I'm reading. And I feel horrible at this because, like I said, I'm trying to read this by Monday, but I genuinely am not sure if it's going to happen because, like I said, I'm not in the mood for it. And it's hard, like, I hate reading something when I'm not in the mood for it. But then this will be the second book that I miss reading before the end of the month for this book club, and I feel horrible whenever I do that, so I don't know.
maybe I'll try to force it. I still also need to read Ace by Angela Chen. I hear good things about it, but once again, I feel like it's gonna be a nonfiction, aka something that I'm really not in the mood for. But it's something I have to read, so I'm struggling. So instead of picking up either of those, I'm reading Camp. But it's really cute, and I really love sort of the absence of heteronormativity. Well, I wouldn't say the absence of heteronormativity, but the general subversion of heteronormativity that we get in this book. Like, yeah, okay, it's a camp for queer people. Like, of course there's not going to be that much hetero, but like, especially our main character Randy's friends. I love just getting to see them be themselves, especially in this camp where everyone is queer. It's like they get to be themselves and not worry about what other people think of them, and I think that that's really great. And I wish that the main character could see that he's a really great person too, because basically the premise of this book is that the main character Randy has had a crush on this other guy at the camp for like 4 years, and the other guy at the camp never goes for like feminine guys. So Randy has long hair, he likes to paint his nails, he's always in the camp's theater production, and he realizes that to get Hudson, the guy he has a crush on's attention, he's going to have to like mask up basically. So during the year, like between 2 summers of camp, he sort of reinvents himself. He cuts his hair, he starts dressing differently, he starts acting differently, and he basically gets to the camp and his crush doesn't actually remember who he is, even though they've both been going to the camp for the same amount of years. So he pretends to be someone else who's like more masked to get the guy, and like it's really interesting, don't get me wrong, and I'm really enjoying it. But it's so hard to see Randy acting like this because you can tell that it's against his nature, and he keeps making excuses for it. He keeps going, oh, it'll be fine, like he'll fall in love with me, and then I can go back to being my normal happy-go-lucky self and he'll be in love with me, so it's okay. And it's heartbreaking to see him think that way, like feel like he has to change himself to be loved. And like I know, like, okay, he's 16, like that's a hard thing to figure out, but like it still hurts. It still hurts. It's like I just want him to be able to paint his nails and try out for the musical and all that stuff and just be happy. And like this is gonna be like a really interesting experience, I think, to read, but it's just kind of like I don't want bad things to happen to him. Also, I know that this is like expected, but like I love how many queer characters are in this. Like we've met a drag queen, one of Randy's bunkmates is non-binary, one of his friends is a demisexual lesbian, which is so cool because you never see demi-rep in books, like, ever. And one of the counselors at the camp is trans, and just like of course I knew that this was gonna happen. It's literally a camp for queer people, but like it's so nice to read. It's so nice to read. I'm really enjoying it. So yeah. So after basically being in agony for having not read Girl, Serpent, Thorn, I finally am picking it up. I started it yesterday. I suppose I haven't given you guys an update today. It's Saturday. I had a weird morning. It's fine. But this update specifically, I want to talk about Girl, Serpent, Thorn. You can't see that title at all. By Melissa Bashardoust, because I have been complaining about how like I need to read it by the end of the month, but I just haven't had the motivation to pick it up. And I don't know what it was, but I started it yesterday. I got to like page 7 and I was like, okay, this is like kind of cool, but I'm not really into it. So I picked up Camp instead, and that was fire. A beautiful book. I think I talked about it a lot last night, so I'm not gonna like add on because my vlog, if I do this vlog, is gonna be like 2 hours long. Anyway, so today I haven't picked up anything. It's like 3:30-ish, 3:40. So I hadn't picked up anything. I spent the morning editing a video and sort of the afternoon. And then on a whim, I was just like, you know what? I want to sit down and read, and I'm going to read Girl, Serpent, Thorn because it's happening. And I am. I'm on page 23, which doesn't seem like that much of a victory, but like I'm still pretty into it. I gotta say I'm not as into it as I was with Camp. Camp just like immediately captured my attention and I was hooked and I just could not stop reading. I don't quite feel the same with this book, but I know that in general it's easier to hook a reader in contemporary than it is in fantasy, because in fantasy you have to spend time making sure the reader understands the world and understands the stakes and stuff. And in contemporary it's a lot easier to just sort of hop in, go with the flow, and then you can figure that out along the way. But I think I'm enjoying it. I'm not sure how I feel about the main character yet. I've heard people talk about how I don't want to call her an unlikable character because I feel like that's a horrible, like I hate that stereotype, like unlikable character, like no.
No. But I've heard people talk about how she's not a typical YA fantasy narrator. And I don't want to, like, state other books are typical, but, like, I don't know, I think someone said to me, like, after I said that I was reading it, they were like, one thing I liked about that book is that the author lets the main character make bad decisions. And I was like, I already feel horribly for this character, and I can so see where her backstory gives her the perfect excuse to become a villain. She actually has referred to herself as a monster a couple of times. And, like, because of her upbringing and because of what I already have, like, discovered about her character, I feel like this is going to be more akin to, like, a villain origin story than it is to a typical epic fantasy, which I'm not opposed to at all. It just makes me worried about our main character. Not in, like, a bad way, just, like, in a, like, honey, are you okay? Do you want me to call someone? You know, like that. Just, like, I just don't want her to get hurt or anything. Like, I understand why her family did what they did, but, like, at the same time, like, that's so damaging for a person's mental health. Like, we all saw Frozen. We know what happened there. So, like, why would this book be much different than that, I guess? I don't know how vague I need to be because I don't remember exactly what's said in the synopsis. And, like, I don't want to spoil anything, but my Frozen reference probably spoiled something for someone. I'm sorry. I just meant that in, like, Elsa sees herself as a villain or a bad person because of something that she was born with and something that her parents forced her to try to hide. But throughout the movie, we get to see her, like, embrace her own power and her own... Why am I doing this in-depth analyzation of Frozen? Anyway, throughout the movie, we get to see her, like, come into her own, embrace her power, but she does it in a good way. And I think that because it was a Disney movie, it's like, yeah, okay, obviously, that movie is going to end happy. It's a Disney movie. But I think that this story has the potential to go either way because it's a YA, because of what I've heard people say about the main character. And I am actually really excited to get to see what happens. Also, I don't know if I mentioned this, I'm reading this for the Sapphic Book Club, so obviously the main character is Sapphic, and, like, I'm here for it. I'm very convinced now that this is gonna be, like, a villain origin story. Like, it's set up perfectly. Like... Embrace the fact that I'm not an early morning person. Did I know this already? Yes. Do I still get mad at myself when I wake up at 9:30 and then don't get out of bed till 10:30? Also yes. I love my life. So, it's Sunday, and like I said, I've been beating myself up about the fact that I didn't get my day started today till, like, 11. But I'm trying not to do that to myself. Keyword trying. Because I've realized that, like, no matter when I start my day, I can always finish it. Like, it doesn't matter if I start my day at 8 p.m. or 8 a.m. and go to bed at 10 p.m., or if I start my day at noon and go to bed at, like, 2 in the morning. Because either way, I get a full day. The only difference is, like, the amount of sunlight that actually comes into this room. And since I'm not going outside, does it matter? Not really. So, yeah, I'm just trying to embrace my inner night owl and the fact that I just don't get up early naturally and that it just doesn't feel good. But it's hard, especially when I keep thinking, like, oh my god, it's already 1 and I've done nothing today. When that's not true, because I spent the entire morning uploading a video because the Wi-Fi here sucks and the video was like 25 minutes long. So YouTube was hating me. And so was the website that I use to get links. I use a specific website called Books to Read, which supposedly, I haven't actually done my research on this, but I started using it a couple months ago because it just seemed like the best option. But it basically gives you one link to get to a bunch of different websites. So Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Scribd, Apple Books, all of this stuff. The only thing is that I'm pretty sure it doesn't do, like, book depository, which I want to see if I can fix. Anyway, but that website takes a while to load, especially if you haven't talked about any of the books that are in your list before, because it has to load all the different links. And for some reason, Barnes & Noble, the website Barnes & Noble, just wasn't working for me here. I don't know if that was my Wi-Fi or my IP address. I've never heard of Barnes & Noble being hard to access in the UK, but it's possible because Barnes & Noble is a US website.
Anyway, the reason I wanted to make this update is because I want to talk about Girl, Serpent, Thorn. I'm on page 174. That's the page I got to last night. I haven't read it yet today, but I am planning on reading for the rest of the afternoon. Because no matter how much my brain wants to tell me I have a million other things to do, I'm going to read instead. Because that's what I want to be doing. So that's what I'm going to do. And screw you, brain, for trying to make me do other things that I don't want to do as much. Well, that's not true. They're just things that I have to do. And some of them, like, I don't have to do right now. My brain just thinks, oh my god, you have to do them right now. It's like, no. I can sit down and read for a little bit. It's not that hard. So I'm going to finish this book today. Since Goodreads says I'm at 51%, and I read 50% of it yesterday, so I think I can also read 50% of it today. I'm really intrigued to keep reading, because I feel like with most fantasy books and most books in general, you know what the general plot of the book is going to be by the first, I don't want to say a page number because it depends on how thick the fantasy is, but I think like 10%, I want to say, maybe 15 to 20, depending on the amount of world building the author does. Usually we know what the overall plot of the book is going to be by a certain point. And like, we're 50% of the way in and I have no idea what the plot is. Like, I can sort of see a plot that could form, but based on the way that nothing has gone the way that I thought it was going to so far, I don't think that's the plot that's actually going to happen. And I can't decide if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Because, like, on the one hand, it's a good thing because it's like, I tried to guess what was going to happen and I was completely wrong, which we love it when books do that. We love it when books subvert our expectations. But it's also hard to keep reading because it's like, if there's no plot, then there's no, like, stakes. And, like, yeah, okay, there's stakes, and I can see where a plot might go, but like I said, like, I don't know if I'm guessing right or if I'm just being stupid. So yeah, it's interesting, and I just really want to finish it to see what's gonna happen. You know how there's like a climax point and it's always a moment, like if the climax moment that I'm thinking is actually gonna be the climax moment or not, and if, especially if the romance that I'm thinking is supposed to occur is actually going to occur. Because we're 50% of the way in, and like the romance that I thought was going to happen, I didn't have any expectations, and then for a second I had a thought, and then now I don't think that can happen, so I'm like, but people say they like the romance in this, so I'm like, yeah, that's how this book is going. I think right now it feels like somewhere between a 4 and a 3 stars. The reason I want to give it 4 stars is because of the way it's like thrown me for so many loops. Loops. Is that the word? Yeah, throw me for a loop. That's a thing. That's a saying, right? Anyway, the way that it's like sort of subverted my expectations and completely gone in a different direction. I'm really impressed with how the author was able to do that with minimal foreshadowing, at least foreshadowing I did not pick up on at all. But I think that the reason it's like a 4 or 3 stars, like the stuff that I mentioned, like for one, there's parts that feel info dumpy, like they're short parts, but it feels like every time the main character asks a question, she's immediately answered with all the information she needs to know. And I feel like that doesn't usually happen in fantasies. Or maybe it does, and it's just so well written that I don't notice it, but I'm really noticing it in this book, and I don't like that. Like, I want you to tell me all the information without making me feel like you're dumping all the information on me, which I feel like is a high order, but at the same time, like, that's all I want, so. And then the other reason is that, like I said, I don't see a plot, and while I love the subversion of normal fantasy tropes, it's making it hard to follow because, like, I don't know what to root for. I don't know what to invest my time, like, invest my feelings towards this book in, because I don't see an end. So I think that whatever happens in the end, I don't know how much it's going to affect me, like, emotions-wise. I know I shouldn't rate my book on emotions, but, like, I always rate books higher when I connect with them and when they, like, hit hard. I always say, like, hit hard, but not, like a hard-hitting contemporary, like, something with a lot of, like, I don't know, social justice or subverting homophobia or anything like that, but just, like, the way that it makes, or I guess the way that I realize how invested I am in the characters, because when I am really invested in the characters, getting to see the final scene, which is usually pretty death-defying, like, you know, I'm on the edge of my seat, I get really tense, I start, like, exclaiming aloud, it's a problem. And I don't think that's going to happen with this book, because I just don't feel as connected to the characters, because I don't see the stakes, I guess. But I do, but I don't. I'm confused. That's the gist of this update. I'm confused and intrigued, but also very confused. So yeah, I'm gonna keep reading. I'll update you guys when I finish. I should say that this vlog is really long, and I genuinely, like, do I want to upload an hour-long vlog? I feel like no one's gonna watch that. Like, my channel's not big enough for people to watch an hour-long vlog like some other channels. So I talk a lot. I know this by my videos, because my videos are never, like, I don't think I've published a video that was less than 10 minutes long. Talk to you later. Bye. No, before you ask, I'm not taking off this hood. What are you gonna do about it? I hope this clip also has good lighting, because it's like 6 o'clock at night, and I think the lighting's okay, but like, you never know. I just wanted to close out this vlog. It's Sunday, and I realized I started this on like Monday night, so technically I could go till tomorrow. I think it's best if I stop it on Sunday and then next week on Sunday as well. That seems like the best course of action. But I figured I should talk about the books that I read in this vlog. Out of the books that I had, like that I sort of said were TBR-ish, I finished 2 of them. So that's not bad. And it's probably about how my TBRs usually go, so I'll just talk about them really quick. I don't have to talk about them too much because I obviously will have a wrap up going up very soon, but like, you know me when it comes to talking about books, so like, you never know. The first one that I talked about in this vlog, technically I finished it last Sunday, but I figured I should talk about it since I did talk about it at the beginning of this vlog. That is The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. I read this for the Phase and Gaze book club pick for August. I gave it 5 stars. It was brilliant, amazing, show-stopping, beautiful, excellent, all of the good descriptor words. I feel like I talked about it enough in this vlog, so that's I think all I'm gonna say about it for now. The next book I finished was The Death of Vivek Oji by Akwege Emezi, and I think I had a similar experience with this with Girl, Serpent, Thorn, which I just finished and I will talk about. Couldn't talk about these books in the order that I read them. At the beginning, I was confused, I was concerned, and I didn't really want to be reading it, but the more that I read it, the more invested in the story I got and the more excited I was to see how it was going to end. And like, it was hard because I knew how it was going to end, but at the same time, I didn't want it to end in the way that I knew it was going to end, if that makes sense. Yes, I am referring to the fact that the title is literally The Death of Vivek Oji, so we all knew that Vivek Oji was going to die. It still hurt, okay? It still hurt. It still fucking hurt. And I loved how, while this book centered around Vivek Oji, it felt like it really centered the characters that sort of revolved around him, I guess. Some of his best friends, his cousin, his parents, his aunt. I just thought that that was a really interesting concept instead of making it center Vivek entirely. No, you know what? I'm gonna stop talking about this book now because I said I was gonna leave some for my wrap up, but I also gave this one 5 stars, I think, mostly because in the ending, I didn't think I would be, but I was completely wrecked, so, you know, there's that. Okay, this hood is starting to bother me, so sorry if my hair looks awful. Next, I'm not sure if I ever actually updated about this one, but I did read Love Creekwood by Becky Albertalli. This is a sort of short story collection. It's basically all of the emails that the main Simonverse gang, so I guess this would be, if you haven't read Love, Simon, Blue, Abby, Leah, and Simon. It's centered around the emails they send to each other their freshman year of college, and like their internal struggles and like how they stay in touch because they're all going to separate colleges, stuff like that, like especially because they're all spread across the East Coast. And it was amazing. I think that as a book itself, it was meh, but as a continuation of Simon vs. the Homo sapiens agenda and the fact that it centered characters that I love, it was amazing. So I gave it 5 stars. Okay, next, and you guys saw me talk about this one a lot, so I'm not going to talk about it very much, was George by Alex Gino. This book is amazing, and I want to shove it in the hands of every single child on this planet because they all deserve to understand this experience and the fact that this isn't a weird thing to anyone for any reason at all. The fact that being trans and knowing that when you're that young or not knowing when you're that young is completely valid, and that it's an experience that you will probably see in your life, and like you will know trans people in your life. And I just want everyone to understand that, like, it's not that big of a deal. They're just trans, like, get over it. There's no need to be overly accommodating. But I think it's also important to read as a person of any age to understand this experience from a very internalized point of view, because we definitely get to see Melissa's thoughts very much in this book, and her feelings and her emotions about the world and how it is sort of built to fight against her, I guess. Yeah, this book is amazing. I love it so much, and I need to read Rick as soon as possible. Rick's what it's called, yeah. Next, I read Camp by Elsie Rosen. This book follows a character named Randy who has been in love with this other character at camp named Hudson. I don't remember if I gave this, I don't know why I'm giving synopses, and I don't even remember if I gave this synopsis in this vlog, so I'm just going to talk about it. Anyway, he's been in love with this other kid at camp named Hudson for like 4 years, but he knows that Hudson only goes for mask guys, and he's very feminine. He loves the theater, he does his nails, he doesn't explicitly dress up in drag, but he wears more feminine clothing. Clothing doesn't have a gender, but society treats it like it has a gender, so in that viewpoint, he wears more feminine clothing. He likes to wear like sparkly things and skirts and stuff. He's in, like I said, he's in theater. He likes to sing. He wants to be an actor. And so this summer at camp, what he's decided to do is mask up so that he can sort of get Hudson. And it starts working too well because Hudson doesn't even remember who he is, even though they've both been going to the camp for the same amount of time. And so he puts on this other persona of a very masked guy to sort of win Hudson over. And this book was a wild ride. I loved it. I realized I didn't give you ratings for any of the other books, but I think all of them have been 5 stars. I haven't decided what I'm rating Girl, Serpent, Thorn yet, but I will talk about that next. This book was beautiful. I want this camp to exist in real life so I can go, even though I'm too old, because the idea of being completely surrounded by other queer people is amazing, even though the fact that I'm ace and aro might alienate me, because there is one character in here where it's specifically talked about how there's one character in here who is ace and aro, and she's had hate before because some people have said that, like, she's not queer and that she can't be there, and it's ridiculous. Anyway, a beautiful book. A must read, especially, like, no, not especially, just read it, because it's amazing. It's really good. I read it all in one night, and I cried, and I died, and everything was amazing. And then, finally, I feel like I had a pretty good reading week this week. I finished 6 books in I finished 6 books in 8 days, which I think is pretty good. And, like, I finished them, like, day by day by day, almost basically. This Girl, Serpent, Thorn, I think is Girl, Serpent, Thorn, and The Death of Vivek OG. The Death of Vivek OG were the only 2 that lasted more than 1 day, so love that for me. I just finished this book. It was not at all what I was expecting. I never actually read the synopsis. I had heard Sasha talk about it, and I also knew it was a pick for the book club, so I was like automatically like, yes, I'm going to read it. And it was not at all what I thought it was going to be, but I think that was in a good way, because I honestly didn't have very many expectations, but I did think it was going to be a pretty typical epic fantasy, I'm not trying to say that in a bad way. I'm just saying that, like, I thought it would follow sort of, I guess, general well-known storytelling guidelines, especially in, like, the sort of, what do you call it? Arc of action, where, like, you know, introduction, conflict, like, introducing the conflict, and then you rise to action to get to the climax, and then resolution. Like, that's not how this book went at all. But it was super interesting to read this book. The main character was super flawed and really interesting to read from. I guess my one gripe with this book was that I didn't truly feel for the characters, and I didn't feel like I understood the plot until about halfway through. And it wasn't until the end that I really got emotional when bad things were about to happen to the characters. And I think that that's a bit of a flaw, because I get the fact that, like, the author needs to do the setup, and this book had a lot of setup. I don't think the plot was really introduced until, I think, like I talked about earlier, halfway through this book, which isn't the best way, I think, to go about writing a fantasy. My personal opinion, obviously it depends on the book and all of that stuff. And I think that books like that can redeem themselves through the rest of the book. Like, if they start out with not a lot of plot, if they have other redeeming qualities, obviously that's going to bring it back up in my eyes. But this book just didn't quite have those. I feel like I need to stop talking about it because, like I said, wrap up. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed this book. And I think because of the ending, I'm going to have to give it a 4-star. Before the ending, I was thinking it was going to be a 3, but I definitely think that because of the ending, it's going to be a 4. So yeah, I had a really good reading week. I usually rate stuff 4 and 5 stars, in case you didn't, I don't think I talk about star ratings very much, but I don't know, I just felt like doing it this time. But I think, as you guys have noticed, I don't really rate things under 3 stars very much. I think I've rated one book under 3 stars this year, and that was Paper Towns, because I hated that book. So this isn't a bad rating. This is a pretty good rating. Well, it's a kind of a meh rating, because I rate most stuff 5 stars, which is like, I need to fix that in my life, but you know, we're here. Also, I thought that this book had a really great representation of bisexuality, and it didn't deal with any sort of like homophobia, or there wasn't sort of this moment of the character sort of grappling with the fact that, oh my god, I like multiple genders. It was just sort of like, oh yeah. There was more focus on her realizing that she had crushes on certain people than it was about the fact that she liked multiple genders, if that makes sense, which I really appreciated, because we all love it when books that have queer characters don't entirely revolve around queerphobia. So yeah, that didn't go back in well, but that's fine, I'll fix it later. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know down below if I should do more vlogs like this. I feel like this one was extra long for some reason. I mean, I know why. I talk a fucking lot. It's been 13 minutes now. But just let me know if this is the kind of thing you want to see again, because I don't know how this is going to be received. And I guess let me know what you guys read this week, because for me it was really good. I don't know how other people have been doing, but I've had a really good reading week, and I think that I ended up reading a good amount of books in the month of August, which I'm really happy about. So yeah, all my social media links will be in the description, so make sure you go follow me, especially on Twitter and Instagram, if you want to see more content from me, all that stuff. And I feel like I need to come up with a more professional thing where I promote myself, because I'm so bad at self-promotion, and I need to stop talking now. Bye!